Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call this meeting of the House Education Committee to order. We've got a lot to consider this morning. We're on a tight time frame. I would ask you to open your folders. Representative Earhart, if you want to come to the podium and present your resolution to us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you House Resolution 1048, which will create the House Study Committee on Education Accreditation in Georgia. We have a monumental task as legislators to, one, provide a proper public education for our students here in Georgia, to ensure the quality of that education, and also to provide careful oversight of expenditures of public funds that are dedicated to it. This study committee would take a very close and in-depth look at the process of accreditation in Georgia, which quite frankly is a mystery to a lot of folks, including my constituents. The purpose of the committee will be to particularly focus on opportunities to reduce cost, to improve educational opportunity, to ensure, very importantly, alignment with Georgia law and education policy, to ensure effective and competent governance, and to protect the rights of students, families, educators, and elected members of the Board of Education. You know, I will tell you, probably 2 or 3 years ago, nobody in my district really knew a whole lot about accreditation. My constituents certainly knew that it existed. They recognized the importance of it, in that it lends a sort of a stamp of approval or legitimacy to their children's education. What many folks probably did not know at the time, but certainly know now, is that it's a wide-ranging topic, lots involved with the process of accreditation. 150, I think it is 159 of our school systems in the state are currently accredited by a nonprofit private entity that is unaccountable to the legislature, unaccountable to our Georgia taxpayers, and operates really with a set of criteria that it comes up with in terms of credential and criteria for accreditation and special reviews. Cobb County experienced some very unfortunate repercussions of this in our county within the past year. I think that as legislators, it's our obligation to take a look at this. Let's ask the questions. Let's bring all of the interested parties and the relevant people to the table and talk about how we can create a positive and effective accreditation environment in our state that does right and does pays its due and does what is important to and what we owe the 1.7 million Georgia public school students in our state. I ask you for your favorable consideration of HR 1048. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for any questions.
Well, thank you. And I would just say that to the representative, thank you for bringing this. To members of the committee, most of you sitting here today have reached out to me from our conversation the other day with Senator Tippins around accreditation in support of this. And so I don't think we need a prolonged discussion. I only see 2 questions. So very quickly, Representative Carter, I'll go to you, and then Vice Chairman Irwin.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Earhart. So I'm trying to remember all these names at the same time.
It's a lot of names.
Yeah. So we had some conversations a few years ago in the Education Committee around accreditation and what Georgia in the past had contracted with the accrediting agencies. So, and I you were saying that a lot of our constituents don't really know what that process looked like. So can you add just a little insight in how in-depth do you anticipate the study committee?
Well, I know that there's a number of issues that need to be addressed. One would be, and if there's any doubt, I would just say that about the importance and the far-reaching effect that the potential loss of accreditation can have on our students here in Georgia. Accreditation is tied to the Hope Scholarship. Right? Students that graduate from a high school or public high school in the state of Georgia that has lost its accreditation will not qualify for the Hope. Now, whereas it is not required for admission to Georgia public universities, it is required often for out-of-state universities and some institutions of higher learning. So the stakes could not be higher. I anticipate we will look at the criteria that is used for accreditation. Who decides? What measure do we have in determining that a school is accredited or not? What are the criteria for placing a school system under an unscheduled accreditation review, which is what happened in Cobb County and had devastating effects? So I imagine we will look at all of those things. Also, just the very nature of accreditation in and of itself. Why is it coupled to the Hope Scholarship? I think we should unpack all of that and bring everybody to the table. It's a bipartisan issue.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Irwin.
Yes, at the appropriate time, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend due pass of this resolution.
Now's the time. So we have a motion that HR 1048 LC 490955 do pass. We have a second by Chairman Chokus. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Pause for dramatic effect. All those opposed, say no. Thank you. Representative, motion
you.
carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to turn to one more bill, and then we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. I've got a few pieces of paper here that I need to get organized myself. You all remember, if you will turn in your folder to Senate Bill 603. Senator Rahman presented this bill to us the other day about the idea of a pilot program for evaluating outdoor learning spaces. If you will turn this over and look on the back of Senate Bill 603, we made two very minor changes. Line 18, we have in essence changed the idea that the state would fund this. And now we're saying that private nonprofit or the local school system may fund. And then if you will go to line 20, we added language to say that the local school board shall agree. So with all due respect to the DOE, they couldn't point and anoint without local approval. We felt that the locals should have some buy-in. Again, members, if you haven't seen these schools at work, I have one in my district. It is absolutely fantastic. So Representative Carter.
Thank you, Chairman. I love the bill. I love what it's doing, and I appreciate being brought forward. My concern would be if there is a school district that really could benefit from this pilot program, but because of the economics in that particular district, they may be prohibited if they didn't have the partnerships available. So is it possible to maybe put the state funding with some type of cap if there is a district or a school that wants to participate, that the funding just isn't there? Maybe not funding all of it, but some participation, because this is a great opportunity for our young folk to be able to enjoy the outdoor and understand all of that. And I think it could help us expand even the agricultural careers. So I wouldn't want a school that could benefit not to be able to because they don't have the funding or the partnerships.
I certainly understand that. And again, so to your point, in the case that the local school board might not be able to afford that, we did stipulate that private or nonprofit. I'm not comfortable at this time committing to state funding just because as a member of the Appropriations Committee, I've seen that budget and I've seen the asks that are there. And I've also seen the dedication that we have to furthering funding of K-12. So I certainly agree with you, but I think at this time, I want to see this pilot program begin. And what my hope would be is that there is enough positive that does come out of that then we come back and look at it from an appropriation standpoint. Yep. So with that, we do have a question online from Representative Wade.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, so that would not prevent like a local Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, Kiwanis Club, any of those kind of groups?
You are correct. Private or nonprofit or local school system could fund. Yes, sir.
The local partners know in my community very good. Just making sure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Seeing no other questions, what's the will of the committee? Motion do pass from Representative LaRicchia, second from Representative Wilson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Thank you. The motion carries. We will stand at ease for less than 5 minutes, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come back to order. Chairman Watson, if you want to come up to the podium, and if you will confirm the Senate bill that you're working on and the LC number so that members can look in their folders and confirm we're all working on the same sheet of music, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate y'all letting me be here today. This is Senate Bill 51 LC 491015S.
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
All righty. Well, thank y'all for letting me be here again. Just a little quick background. I currently serve on the House Oversight Committee for GHSA. And so basically what we're doing in this bill is creating a general oversight committee to oversee the GHSA and what they have going on. Many of you have probably heard complaints from classification, travel, official shortages. We've had lots of issues that we've heard from on the oversight committee, and I know many of you may have heard about them in your districts. And so basically what we're doing here is comprising a 10-member committee made up of different organizations that have stake in sports in our state, and you can kind of read through all of them. I won't go through them each one, but we tried to make sure that everybody was represented. There was in the original version of this bill a component that required GHSA to reimburse the local schools for travel. We have removed that after talking with GHSA. The reason for the removal is they claim that it would bankrupt GHSA. But our argument to that is, well, what about the schools that are still going to have to pay it? Somebody's going to have to pay the travel. And so there are some conversations that need to be had about travel and how things operate. And schools, especially in my area, are having to go further and further away, and that's for all the sports that they participate in. So they're incurring a lot of expense in that. So somebody's going to pay it. And if we'd have left that in there, GHSA would have, once again, just put it back on the schools who are already paying a lot and covering those costs anyway. So that's kind of what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. We have kind of tied it to QBE to make sure that everyone participates and that GHSA acknowledges this oversight committee, and hopefully they'll have, you'll see also the list of things that we've kind of set them up to inquire about and ask and look into. And I'd be glad to take any questions and just would greatly appreciate your support.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a couple of questions here. Let's go over to Legislative Council first, if we can, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just a point of order, I just wanted to make it clear, the bill itself addresses athletic associations in general. It is not specific to any particular athletic association. So any athletic association that schools work with would be obliged under this bill. As a practical matter, you're right. That is primarily GHSA, right, but this bill is not specific to GHSA, and just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. And Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm glad that Legislative Council brought that to our attention, because I've had a couple of calls with I guess it's the Georgia Independent Schools Athletic. Would that include, do they have an athletic organization, or do you know the answer to that? The independent schools?
Anecdotally, I do believe they do. This would not necessarily apply to them.
Okay.
So our law, the General Assembly's statutes would apply to public, particularly public high schools that work with athletic associations.
Okay, thank you.
And some participating private schools, but not necessarily all of them.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Watson. I know that you and I have talked about this. This is my 8th session. This is my 8th year. And we've had just short conversations about this and some of the constituent concerns we've had with GHSA because of the public systems that we have down in rural South Georgia. And I think this past year that my family and I were on 150 to 175 mile one way to play football for 3 weeks in a row. And so those are concerns. We've also had concerns about the classification stuff, which automatically has an impact on how far you travel. I'd like to see the mileage limit in there, because then you don't have it takes the ambiguity out of the bill as it relates to when you're starting to set these schedules and scheduling to play schools. That being in the law prohibits or almost eliminates the fact that an executive oversight committee is going to have to come in there and fuss with you about it later because it's in there. And then you really start to look at the math of how far it is to travel and who you schedule to try to play games. And we hear that we're going to go broke argument from everybody that comes to this Gold Dome. And so I'm certainly supportive of trying to figure out how to have better oversight with this organization, with our other athletic organizations. But I'd like to see the mileage limit put back in there, but I'm supportive of it. Thank you for bringing this.
Thank you, Representative. And we did include here on line 63 and 64, just that we've asked this oversight committee to look at travel related issues of the participating schools. Because we know that we need to put our communities back together. When I played ball, you played in your community, and there were rivalries, and people went to their towns, neighboring towns, and they ate in the restaurants, and there was that rivalry, and communities were together, and we've gotten away from that. And it is hard in rural Georgia, but we're constantly having to pay people to come to our community, and then we don't get gate receipts, and nobody goes to the games, and it's a struggle. So thank you.
Seeing no other questions at this time, what's the will of the committee? Chairman Chokus, motion do pass. Chairman Nix, second. A motion is second, Senate Bill 51, LC 491015 by substitute do pass. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anybody online? Okay. All opposed? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Motion carries. Senator Tippins, if you'd like to join us at the podium, sir. And Senator, I believe you have that updated version in your hands here. If you would just confirm the Senate bill and the LC number that we're working off there.
Yes, sir. The LC number I'm working off of is LC 491018S.
Yeah,
Or
yes,
would you
sir.
rather me work off of the prior and then?
No, that is the current one. Everyone has that in front of them, correct? Yes.
LC 491018S.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator. The floor is yours to update us on this version of the bill.
Okay. We have made some changes in this bill from how it came over from the Senate. I think there are improvements in it. I think it has cleared up some misunderstandings about the intention of the bill. Maybe the intention of the bill was not clear, but this bill allows for accreditation of K through 8 by any accreditation agency that meets the criteria of the state of Georgia. As I said before, this bill was not designed to put anybody out of business, but to change the focus or refocus the direction of education toward academic excellence and the evaluation of that. It would make up the accreditation process. There were some that were concerned about those schools who were accredited by
freaking moron.
GHC. This does not affect them in their ability to function in any way. We realize that there are school districts that want accreditation of elementary and middle schools. This bill provides for that. They can choose their accreditation agency. And so that's the majority of the changes that have been made. There has been one change in the date of implementation to July 1st, 2023, instead of 2022. Purpose of that is twofold. We probably have accreditations and procedures in place right now that we don't need to disrupt that process and have ambiguity as to the standards that are going to be used in that. The bill is straightforward enough that this gives ample time, plus it also gives time for the study commission. I think that y'all, study committee that y'all have approved to come back and bring its findings. I'm not going to tell you this is a perfect bill. If there's ever been a perfect bill come out of the legislature, I haven't read it. But, you know, if it needs a little bit more tweaking, we'll certainly have another legislative session to do that. But basically, you know, I'm comfortable with the bill. I think it accomplishes the goals and purposes that are brought forth, and that is to refocus the attention of accreditation and the direction of education toward the core business that assures, number one, we do our duty to the students by providing them a quality education that will enable them to enroll in the universities of their choice to the extent that they're willing to avail themselves of the opportunities put before them. And it also assures the taxpayers the dollars that they are spending for education are focused truly on education.
Well, Senator, you sure did open that door pretty wide for me to make a wise crack about the Senate and the perfect bill, but I'll refrain and not make such a comment. I appreciate all your hard work on this bill, and I appreciate you working with this committee on this bill, but I am seeing one blue light, and that's my own. So I have one more blue light, Representative Carter.
I was moving this. Thank you, Senator, for bringing this. I've gotten a few emails with some concerns. So can you help me understand what this bill, how this bill will affect the current accreditations in our local districts around the state? Because there are some that feel like there's something going on in this bill that would be adverse to them keeping their accreditation. So can you help me understand that?
I'm a little bit hard of hearing. If my answer doesn't match your question, you need to correct me and bring me back in line. But the way the bill is structured, I do not think that this is going to affect any accreditation process that's in works right now, nor is it going to affect any standing accreditation on years going out for the length of the accreditation period. But what it basically does is refocus 75%, one other change that was made, and I forgot to mention it. One other change was in the percentages spelled forth that were put forth in the bill. Changes were made. Originally, it was 80% based on the education outputs of the district and the schools. That has been dropped to 75%. Financial efficiency and accountability is at 15%, and we left 10% in there for board governance. I think there were some questions that have come up in the past. Well, what about boards if they're dysfunctional? Should that not be a portion on the operation of the district? In thinking about it, I agree that you certainly need a venue where that can come in and be dealt with in the accreditation process, but that does not need to carry the sway over what the outcomes and findings of accreditation are. I think I mentioned before, it's common sometimes you'll see school boards that do not get along as well as the public would like for them to get along, but as long as it does not adversely affect the students' ability to learn and enter colleges and their career choices, that really doesn't have any effect. It's sad that happens, but really and truly, there's very little recourse on that aside from removing a board. But I do believe there should be a place in the evaluation process. If there are other factors, and it's not just school board, it's just the governance as a whole. If there's shortcoming in the entire government process, I mean, any part of it that can be brought up at that point in time, because the whole goal of accreditation is not to beat somebody over the head, but it's the fact that it can point out any deficiency that you may have and help you do better and turn out a better product. And it's a situation of just constant improvement. That's what we all ought to be striving for.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, we heard on the earlier bill that there's a lot at stake when it comes to high school accreditation. I know not all colleges require the high school be accredited, but a number of them do, in particular out of state colleges, and I think our service academies do too. Do you know if that's true?
I think that's correct. And I'm certainly not opposed to accreditation, but as I mentioned earlier, the thing that concerns me about our current process, I think we need to refocus on education, because if you look at the number of students that receive Hope Scholarship and the number of students that lose Hope Scholarship within 2 semesters, there's a deficiency there in the quality of learning, and we need to address those deficiencies. Because I am firmly convinced, and I've talked to people in several states. I've been involved with SREB for several years, Southern Regional Education Board. The thing that colleges and universities are looking for are well-prepared students. They want to know what they make on the SAT. They want to know what they made on the ACT. They want to know how many AP courses they took, what kind of score they got. And they also always ask the student, tell me about what you do and from an extracurricular standpoint. And so the college admission is based on the characteristics of a particular student. They don't ask them what their high school does. They don't ask them how well the school board does or the district. So they look at the individual student. And my intention is to give each individual student the best education they can possibly get.
But thank you, Senator. And the reason I asked that question is because I think this is a very impactful area that we're dealing with. It, the stakes are high. And I think we have seen in recent years, more colleges and universities moving away from SAT and ACT scores and looking more to these secondary factors where accreditation might play more heavily. But the main question I wanted to ask you is, so we just passed a bill to do a study committee. You've been serving here a lot longer than I've been. Have we studied this issue before? Has the Senate done a study committee on this? What work has gone into this before?
Well, I've been involved in education policy for 26 years, and I've studied the outputs of students. I've looked at admission rates to colleges. I've looked at how well students do. We, ideally, if you focus on the student, if you focus on student learning, and if we can maintain a longitudinal data system to see how well students are doing, that's the biggest help towards success. To say, have I looked at accreditation? I think I mentioned in the last meeting, I was astounded. It was back in 2012, 2013, when I was having a discussion actually with the people who were doing accreditation at that time in one of our counties. And I asked them, I said, what I see, I don't see anywhere where you're looking at an evaluation of the delivery and the success of academics. And they said, oh, we don't do that. That's amazing to me that you accredit schools and academic performance is not a part of it. Now, we're told that it is, but I really don't see in the metrics where that is. But this needs to change.
Thank you, Senator. And just to be clear, I'm not questioning your qualifications on this issue, but I do think when dealing with something this impactful and there's a lot of issues at play, it does seem to me that it would be better as an institution if we have more people looking at this in a more thorough manner before we pass something so major. Thank you.
Representative Maynard.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the substitute in front of me. Did we add any language to it?
Representative Maynard, are you with us online? I see your hand up.
You can't hear me? Hello? Hello, hello?
Yes, ma'am.
You can hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, I
Hello?
can.
Okay, sorry. I don't have the substitute in front of me. Did we add any language that says we're going to look at the infrastructure of the schools? You know, we talked the last time about, well, really, if we're looking at individual students and their success in schools, some schools have older infrastructures than others. And we just passed the lead initiatives out of the House, and lead does decrease IQ and other problems with behavior in school. So is that part added to the bill?
Representative Maynard, I will speak to that on behalf of Senator Tippins. I have talked to Representative Earhart about the study committee that we're going to be forming, and have asked that this be a part of that study committee so that we can continue to find the information and the answers that we need to make recommendations moving forward. And I hope you and I could work on that together, Representative Maynard.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Yes, ma'am. And to close us out, Representative Carter.
Thank you. Senator Tippins, you actually answered part of my question. I just remember a few years ago when we were talking about accreditation, who is currently the accrediting agency for Georgia, and do we only have one? And are we currently still under the same contract that we were in back in 2015?
We have two accreditation agencies for public schools. It's Cognia, which is SACS was merged with Advanced Ed, and then it became Cognia. And then we have Georgia Accreditation Commission.
Thank you, Representative LaRicchia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Senator Tippins and all the work that he's done with education. But and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Chairman, but I do agree with Representative Wilson, and that we just passed a resolution to study this accreditation and take a really deep dive into it and look at it as closely as we possibly can with the help, hopefully, of Senator Tippins and others. What are your thoughts on the irony of that we'd be passing a measure that's a pretty big move into this accreditation pool at the same time that we would be looking to put together a study committee to study it?
I appreciate the question. I will commend Senator Tippins and Vice Chairman Irwin for their diligence and their work, and other members of this committee who have assisted behind the scenes, if you will. And I certainly, in this situation, want to defer to the will of the committee. I believe that, as has been stated, accreditation is a very important issue. And yes, I think there are things that we can do now. Yes, I think there are things that we should and need to look at to Representative Maynard's point. So I will defer to the will of the committee and Vice Chairman Irwin, and then Chairman Chokas.
If I can, let me respond to that, Representative LaRicchia. This is a process that needs to take place, and I'm very comfortable with the studying that will come up, and the fact that this bill is going to lead us down a path to a better process that could be impactful to our students. And I understand your questioning that maybe the horse is behind the cart, so instead of in front of it. So on that, but I think that this bill directs us to pulling that cart in the study is going to verify a lot of that, and also allow us the opportunity to be already advanced down the path to a better process.
Chairman Chokas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My wife is, before I move to pass, I just want to make a comment. My wife is the Dean of the College of Business at Georgia Southwestern State University. And your comments about the product that our high schools are sending to our colleges and universities need to improve. And I think that this is a major step in that direction. With that, I would like to move that Senate Bill 498, LC 491018S, receive the due pass designation from our committee. And thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There is a motion by Chairman Chokus, a second by Chairman Nix. Is there any further discussion? Okay. In that case, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, no?
No.
The ayes have it. The motion carries. Senator Tippins, thank you for being here. With my final comment to members of the committee, it is, what's tomorrow, day 39? Today's Thursday. I do not anticipate at this time that we will have another meeting, but that is subject to change. Representative Laricchia. So the process is that I'll make recommendations to the Speaker's office for him to confirm and appoint those, which leads me to my.
Perhaps you could, because this doesn't take effect until 2023, that they could kind of look at how this has an impact, this particular piece of legislation before passing and signed by the government, how it has an impact on what accreditation.
Very good point. And so I'll leave you with this. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve alongside each of you in your role on this committee. And I'm very thankful for all the work that you've all put in. But we've got a couple of ad hoc committees that we're going to be working on with Representative Howard. We've got a couple of study committees. So I will say this as my wife says it to me, I will be looking for volunteers. When the volunteer pool runs out, we will move to the voluntold portion of the engagement. So I will be finding each of you over the next couple of days to talk about these ad hoc committees and prospectively these study committees, since they still have to go through the process. If you see me coming, please don't run too far or too hard. And with that, we stand adjourned.